So, Asmongold. What's his problem? I could make this video about any political entity from Trump to Rachel Ziegler, but I think people who talk a lot, streamers, make the best examples, as their words aren't speeches by analysts, and the amount of dialogue they create allows you to see a fuller scope of their ideology, more transparency. It's easier to connect with them. Obviously, the streamer needs to be big enough for people to know who they are, and I'd rather not talk about the Zapdos cosplayer, so I'm going to go with Asmongold. Now let's take a look at a recent thread. The title claims he stated that America is a white country because America fought wars.
So that's it. America is not white people's land. That's Europe. Well, it is. It is. It absolutely is white people's land. We fought a war over it. Duh. It got conquered.
He also states, and this is more important context, deliberately ignored by the OP and many people in the threads in order to frame it in a negative way, that it was conquered, which it was. Not just conquered, mind you, but claimed and colonized. Conquering could mean many things, but America wasn't made into some subservient vassal state by a foreign power. It wasn't burned to the ground and abandoned. It was taken. By the blood of those who lived in the USA, the natives who were nearly eradicated, did America become a white country. Here's a GIF I took from Wikipedia, but go check whatever chart you want. They're all about the same. Surely there's minute differences, given any census in such a big country won't be perfectly accurate, especially in 1960 and on the topic of illegal aliens, but still, on this chart, pretty much everywhere besides borders, islands, and the South, with its former slaves, had over 90% white people. And you're going to say that's not a white country. Then you're either a liar or an idiot. Ask yourself which, and then ask yourself why. Skip ahead to 2020, and you still have most of the states being between 70 and 80% white people. But what else do you see? Places with ports, like Florida or California, having less white people, of course. Places like Texas or New Mexico, places with borders, they have less white people, of course. You see less white people in the so-called South, because most black people stayed there after the emancipation, of course. You see less white people in places with super cities, which will create more diversity, of course. You see less white people due to intermingling of species, of course. You see more white people deeper in the country because the USA is, or at least was, a white country. Of course, this isn't extremism, it's common sense, or at least it was, but like those charts show, something is awry. Maybe it's not some Illuminati scheme, maybe it's just people taking advantage of poorly conceived laws, but either way, this is not about skin color. It's about America becoming un-American. What should worry Americans, real Americans, is not that it's becoming less white, but that it's becoming less American. And anyone who's paid attention to Asmongold knows that he's talking about immigration, just like he has with various other countries, even those where white isn't even part of the equation, like Japan's current predicament. My overall point, remember, is about how echo chambers present things out of context and skew reality, creating problems, creating violence. This isn't about people who pay attention to Asmongold. It's about the mouth-breathing Redditors who see a title and mark that person for death without knowing the truth of the situation. Some in the thread even point out what I've just said, including the reasonable assumption that Asmongold was not talking about the Revolutionary War. For some inexplicable reason, I don't know why people would think that. If he's arguing it's a white country, why would he cite a civil war fought to stop white supremacy, where those fighting to enslave black people lost the war, as proof of it being a white country? 1 + 1 does not equal rainbow just because you hate Asmon. He's clearly not talking about the Revolutionary War or the Civil War. He's talking about the Native Wars. So let's take a look at some of the quotes from the first threads on Livestream Fail, and then afterwards I'll present a second thread of Livestream Fail, both within the span of a week, just to really display the hypocritical political whiplash where even in the same echo chamber, even about someone they've been arguing over, Asmongold, for years and years and years, they can't decide what they even think about him. They put words in his mouth on one hand, they defend him on the other hand, they attack him regardless, they defend him regardless, they just make up things and they don't even know things. And I think that's a fascinating dichotomy for the same echo chamber in the span of a week. And then after these two threads, I'll just show a couple other things about Asmongold, because I think context is king, and that's the most important thing. Now, please remember, the context here isn't really about Asmongold, or entirely about LSF, the people who put words in his mouth, the people who are lore masters that can quote everything he's ever said. It's not even about the weirdly high amount of top 1% posters you'll see in these threads. This is about the average layman who goes to Reddit, and they see this one echo chamber in a single week produce these two different threads, one of which saying that Asmongold should be cancelled, and the other of which heralding him as a literal god. I said it before, and I will say it again. His dad was the only one keeping him in check. Followed by, did his dad pass away recently or something? And someone saying yes. Yes, I think he passed away less than 2 months after this comment was, prior to this comment being made. And I don't see any reason to say this besides simply being completely numb to the emotions of others. And yet, here they are, unsurprisingly, on a place called Livestream Fail, presenting themselves as being morally elevated above someone else, like they have the ethical high ground, whilst they are insulting someone because their dad just died. Very good-hearted of you. And then, following that, we have someone in the same thread saying another thing about his parents, the total opposite thing the previous person said, but at the same time they're both upvoted. This person says, it's not that his parents were holding him back. This person says, honestly, this is the person his parents raised. An enabled, mentally ill husk whose core belief is his actions are justified because a relative fought in wars of prior generations. It's among the worst America has to offer. So having an opinion makes you amongst the worst America has to offer. He also says his actions are justified, but as far as I'm aware, Asmongold hasn't done anything, so I think you mean his words are justified, and this person is so angry that they attacked his parents. So if you can attack his parents, that means you can attack his kids, right? Now, doesn't that mean you can attack his grandparents? Or his grandchildren? His great-grandparents? His great-grandchildren? I mean, where's the line when you can do such mental gymnastics? So here we have a comment chain of, it just degrades rapidly, as Reddit comments always do. Someone who said he used to be a good person when he played Warcraft, but then he started talking about politics, and then he's a bad person. I wonder what happened to him. He grew up, and he became interested in politics because he was no longer a child. And claiming that he has far-right talking points. I mean, this isn't a far-right talking point. It's not far-right to say it's a white country when 60% of the people are white. It's just the truth. I would beg anyone listening to look at the very first sentence here as proof of what I'm saying, as proof of the entire reason I'm making this video, or many other videos that I've made. Quote, "It's crazy how you can follow this guy's radicalization through Livestream Fail's clip titles." That's right. That's all you need to judge someone as an undesirable whom you think deserves to die. This is the reason I've made this video. Not that exact sentence or this exact quote, but in general, this is the reason. And the next person says that he was always mask on, and Asmongold was always an evil far-right-winger psychopath, even when he played Warcraft. That person also says that he used to watch him, and now they're still sitting here many years later on Livestream Fail, which suggests a lot about you, but what suggests more about you is that you're attacking his mother, who is dead, and calling her a wacko for no reason. No reason to even mention her. Third person mentions that Asmon had a Warcraft character name where it was like really dark humor about some hardcore neo-Nazi mass murder or something. I don't know anything about that. I don't know if it's true or not, but I wouldn't be surprised. It's not really like a secret that Asmongold would have dark humor. And I know people are going to say, well, it's not humor. Well, look, I've seen people on Reddit say there's no such thing as dark humor. There's no allowance for dark humor. That everyone in the entire world rejects dark humor and no one likes it. And they've been upvoted thousands of times for saying such an insane thing, even though it's blatantly true that people do like dark humor. Your definition of dark might be different from Asmon's. Your definition of humor might be different from Asmon's. But what's true is that you don't go around complaining about all of the other dark humor. You complained about this one specifically because you're obsessive about Asmon or streamers in general. You probably don't go around saying, well, you're not allowed to make a 9/11 joke, as tons of people make 9/11 jokes, because you don't care about that. You don't care about dead babies or whatever else. But Asmund was in his, 20s or something when he did this. It's not very surprising at all that some 20-year-old guy made a dark joke as his character name. It doesn't mean that he's a neo-Nazi. Like, maybe he is, but this doesn't mean anything to me. This is just, like, 90% or more of the character names in Warcraft break TOS, so it's not really a big thing to me. And then the last comment, completely degrading out of the realms of the first comment, is someone saying that Asmongold lives in the cushy suburbs of Austin, full of sheltered and shut-in, hateful types, confident that they know the world but afraid to leave their house and walk onto the grass because of Mexican landscapers. Like, the ice thing is so brand new, and you're talking about stuff like you know it. Like, you know all the people there. You know all of their thoughts. Like, you don't know anything. That's why you're on livestream fail. Here we have more people claiming that Asmongold is a radical, whereas his supporters claim he's a moderate centrist, which is like a lot of his supporters think he's a radical right-winger or a radical Democrat. And you're basing this comment off of him saying that a country which is 60% white and was historically almost 100% white is a white country. The following comments are just nonsense. I mean, you're telling me that you have to conform entirely to every single thing a centrist says in order to be a centrist? Or a liberal, or a right-winger, or a left-winger? That's lunacy. This political umbrella game that everyone keeps playing, where everything is a purity test, is what's destroying politics. That, and of course, everyone treating it like it's a sports ball tournament. And now we see where Reddit transitions from immediate knee-jerk accusations without any thought whatsoever to people simply putting words in someone else's mouth, or just having no idea what they're talking about. What war was fought for this to be a quote-unquote white people's land? So you're saying you don't know anything, and you're asking that sarcastically because you know that he's wrong while you admit that you don't know what you're talking about. But of course you were upvoted 113 times because other people just want to hate Asmongold. He means the conquest wars against Native Americans. Also upvoted. Very weird aspect of Reddit sometimes, especially some more fringe subreddits, because they're both upvoted even though they're sort of at odds end. The following comment as well: war against the indigenous people, genocide of Native Americans, and Mexican-American war. And then the last person in this comment chain also upvoted for saying the Civil War, but white people land side didn't win. It's not the Civil War. If you don't know what you're talking about, don't talk. This particular comment may be the most embarrassing, claiming we did fight a war over it. The people who were pro-white supremacy lost, yet we still have to keep hearing them yap on. Then they edited it to say, so far, like 10 different people have corrected me about it actually being about 3 different other conflicts, which just feels amusing. I'm amused by you feeling the need to publicly announce that you were wrong, and then doubling down on it and claiming that other people were wrong. That's what's amusing to me. You could have just edited it to say, whoops, I don't know anything about history, even though I'm grandstanding as LSF's most empathetic poster, but you didn't. So the comments continue to degrade into weirder and weirder stuff. Someone says, what a weird way to describe the genocide of indigenous cultures. It's not indigenous cultures, it's indigenous people. Yes, the cultures die along with them, but you seem to care more about their culture than their lives, which is even weirder to say, although Asmongold didn't describe the genocide of indigenous people or cultures in some sort of humorous way. He said it was a war. That's not a fun, happy thing. He didn't say, oh, that time when we totally just kicked their ass and they're such losers, GG, rip bozo. That's not what he said. Why are you putting words in his mouth? Why are you twisting his words? And of course, we have people continuing to twist that, saying it's not genocide if you don't see them as people. And then someone else below that in a different chain says 20% of America was black after the American Revolution. And someone says, yes, but they didn't count them as people. Crazy to think that some people still hold that belief. You know, what's crazy, he never said, did he ever say that he doesn't see them as people? Is that what he said? You don't even know what war he's talking about. You don't even know what skin color he's talking about. So this one I wanted to show an example of how echo chambers can devolve in the span of just 3 comments. The top, the middle, and the bottom comment here. The top comment says the guy's got a massive ego, blah, blah, blah. Nothing too special. Second comment says Asmongold's the most egotistical person in the world, or at least they've never seen someone with more of an ego, which is an insane thing to say, considering that people like Musk and Trump are all over the place and they are massive narcissists. And the last comment devolves. Oh wow! What unhealthy amounts of alone time does to an MFer. He's the manifestation of the darkness of solitude and self-validation, and what it does to one's psyche. Does it help that he's watched by many, or that he's potentially suffering from untreated major depressive disorder? You're on livestream fail criticizing someone else who has a successful, I mean, they could just quit their job right now and their children's children wouldn't need to work. And you're on livestream fail diagnosing someone trying to say the darkness of solitude and self-validation. What? Dude. And then eventually, you get to the dumbest level of a Redditor, which is simply accusing. All non-white Americans take note, this isn't just Asmongold's opinion, this is a MAGA opinion. That's right, everyone who's MAGA is a white supremacist, and that validates you attacking them because they're a racist. Yep. You can justify anything if you can convince yourself of your own lie, or if you just don't care about the fact that you're lying. That's where all of this spirals down into. A complete and total lack of dignity, integrity, honor, or respect for anything or anyone besides yourself. It's not simply two humans with differing views. If anyone disagrees with you, they are a demon who deserves to be vanquished. A society of people validating, vindicating the genocide of their own countrymen based on how many upvotes and retweets they get. It's time to talk about the weight of words. This precious luxury, internet optics, is usually given and gifted by preteens, populists, drunks, druggies, psychos, and psyop operators. The weight of confirmation bias can be measured in micrograms. Our such livestream fail is it's a categorical hate group. What's the worth of their confirmation bias to the rest of the world? With every one of them banding together, they can occasionally get subatomic drama on the front page of Reddit, a bar so low it's achieved many times on a daily basis with lies, and yet hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people still see it. This is the power of the echo chamber of Reddit. Those micrograms, they add up. A little bit of stupidity or moral inversion, and you can slander someone's name in front of untold millions and be called a hero for doing it. That said, I'm not making this video to defend him. Asmongold does accuse the left wing of many things baselessly as well, like claiming they're all furries, which in turn is an unwarranted accusation against furries, and honestly, it's way worse for the furries to be assumed Democrats, if you ask me. Such proclivities should be presumed apolitical, just like gender or skin color. Even if a politician claims that they speak for that demographic, it's unfair to put that on the person themselves. I've heard, anecdotal, but I've heard plenty of gay people claim that they don't want to be part of LGBTQ and they don't want LGBTQ to speak for them. Now, I think the self-alleged most empathetic streamers should have some mercy on the furries. They are not technically left-wing. And speaking of the empathy of Asmongold, and coming hot off the heels of this thread, is one posted 6 days later where Asmon breaks this sub's brain by not being the wall-licking extremist both Republicans and Democrats accused him of. Asmongold defends trans people against his chat, saying he'd fully respect his child's pronouns and identity.
Do you call your son a she? Yeah, sure. Yeah. Yeah, I would do it. I wouldn't want to, like, I would go through I would say, are you sure that you feel this way? And I would try to help them get through their gender dysphoria as much as possible. I would, but at the end of the road, if nothing else worked, I would, because that it matters more to me than doing that. Like, why is chat mad? Because, and this is the thing, like, and I say this every time, right?
Chat's mad because there's a lot of extremists in his chat who think that he is an extremist. But at the same time, there's a lot of Democrats who hate Asmongold because they also think that he's an extremist. Well, here's some comments where we see people think Asmongold's normal, his take is normal, and we see people consistently saying that he is making these comments consistently. He's more of a centrist than most people that don't watch him regularly realize. Cosmic Rare Asmon W, but it's not really. The comment responds, he has this, takes like this a lot. They just don't get clipped. I cut back to this person who says that the U.S. modern politics is basically sports at this point, which is exactly true, and it's how I often reference it. People be surprised how many good takes he actually has, but people only focus on the bad things. Yeah, I have a bit of a soft spot for Asmon for that, which is something that I've also said, or maybe will say later in the video. I'm not sure if I'll remember. Classic Asmongold giving totally normal, average personal opinion, and people being shocked. Because if you look at the posts in the sub, out of context most of the time, and the replies about him, they view him as a white supremacist fascist Nazi. Why is chat mad? I think I've addressed that already. And a lot of people here, they're attacking chat, and I get it. But I get it. I get the chat spamming. It's annoying to me too. It's annoying that they do that. I mean, I know that there are other examples where he said something totally reasonable and his chat said L take. It's super annoying. I get it. But at the same time, I don't think going to an echo chamber, which acts as a hate group, and focusing on hate so much that when the streamer that you normally hate on says something that's a W, and then his chat is the thing you have to default to. Like, you can't find anything positive about it. Just don't read the chat. I mean, why are you reading some millionaire's chat and being mad about that when he's not even saying anything that you have a problem with? Just get along with it. Say he disagrees with his chat all the time. It's bad to generalize, because a lot of these people are saying that he fosters this environment. They're saying that he instigates it, he creates it. Aspen supports trans rights. Even like 5 years ago or so, he defended Barney64. No idea who that was. But then, quote unquote, but then he also had his audience harass a trans woman a few months ago, taking her out of context and so on. And what context did they provide? Did they give the name of this trans woman? Did they say why they were allegedly attacked? Did they say how Asmongold did this or anything? No, they've provided no context, no name even. They've just said it happened. And that's left up in the wind for people to choose to believe or to not believe based off of 2 sentences on Reddit. And speaking of not caring about context, didn't he recently say that trans kids only exist because of their parents' mental illness or something along those lines? The response was a bit out of context. Here is the full bit. It's about pre-puberty children being trans. And at the bottom of this, we see someone who says, yes, I do remember him saying something like this. My roommate watches him, and I remember hearing it in the background. You're on livestream fail, saying that you remember things that Asmongold said because you heard it from your roommate who watched them. You think anyone's going to believe that, really? Now, these two people are quite bizarre to me. It's like neither of them even grasp what's important in what he said. And, well, the one person doesn't seem to have even listened to it. The first person says, I think the important point here is the said child in this argument is 20 years old. At 20, you should respect their choice and how they operate their lives. Well, the 20-year-old in most progressive, modern, first world places is not really an adult because they spent their entire lives learning how to do nothing but twerk and crank 90s in Fortnite. But they're still the person's child. That's the important part. Not that they're an adult and you have to just accept anything they do, because you don't. They're an adult. You can cut them off. You can never speak to them again. There's nothing anyone can do about that. The important part is that they're your child, which brings us to the second part of the second comment. He tips his true perspective when he then says, you made this person. That's the extent of his understanding of being a parent. Well, here's the thing. He also said this.
But whenever they're an adult, they get to make adult choices. And at the end of the day, it would be more important for me to preserve the relationship that I had with my child than for me to uphold a viewpoint that is, to me, really inconsequential. I don't care what gender somebody thinks they are or not, because that's not what defines a human being. Like, you have, at that point, 20 years of life experience with this person. This person is you made this person. No, of course I wouldn't throw that away over some pronoun thing. Absolutely not.
So, he's been called a white supremacist because he looked at historical facts and came to a logical conclusion. Now, here's another logical conclusion of his that he's going to say in response to this video, and that will have him labeled as a white supremacist because, well, I'll let him speak for himself.
I think that what this is going to do is it's going to continue to elect people like this who call for shooting migrants and denying them food and water. I think this guy is going to be seen as a moderate in 10 years. And you're going to see people that increasingly feel like their country has been alienated away from them. And I think it's going to cause them to look up to and look for extreme right-wing figures that will use military and violent solutions in order to remove these problems. I think that's what's going to happen. And I think it's going to happen really, really soon. Let me see what they were. To be eligible for the Stormzy Scholarship, one must have one of the following categories. You basically, okay, so you have to be black, African, or black in one way or another. Yeah, this is, I actually think this is what's going to radicalize people more than anything else, is like this like casual normalization of advantages provided to groups of people that somebody is not a part of. I think that's what really radicalizes people faster than anything else. See, this is, I think, the reason why you see a lot of white identity politics that have happened now. It's because a lot of these racial groups have been playing identity politics games and racial identity games forever. And now you have people like, you know, Nick Fuentes fans, etc., that are like, okay, well, if you're going to play the game, we're also going to play the game. And now you have everybody that's playing the identity politics game. And I think this is a bad thing. Like, again, I know that identity matters and people want to have their identity reinforced and everything like that. But the moment that you start adding privileges and benefits to being of an identity, well, then you're going into very dangerous territory. And I think that's very clearly what's going on here, right? They might not like it. Yeah, people are not going to like whenever everybody has a racial identity, especially whenever it's the majority race has a racial identity. Because when they do that, they're going to get together and make decisions that are disadvantageous for racial minorities, right? That's what's going to happen. And I think that something like, the American equality, at least to the extent that we have it, can only really exist to the extent that people don't see themselves as a race first. They have to see themselves as Americans first, and then as that race second. And I think that to the extent that they make decisions based off of racial boundaries, you're going to basically have, again, an ethno-state in a long enough time frame, right? That's what's going to happen. And I think that that has radicalized a lot of people. And I'll view that, and we can contrast this now with, do you remember whenever they had all those text message leaks and it was all those young Republican people talking about how much they liked Hitler? And nobody really cared about that anymore. And the reason why, it's because left-wing people have established basically a standard, and now right-wing people are living up to it. So you have all these conservatives that are saying this crazy stuff, and there's never a point of moral authority that, any liberal can have when you're the one justifying, shutting down a college, or you're the one justifying being violent to an officer, or you're the one justifying, destroying property, somebody's car, something like that. They all got blacklisted and fired from their jobs. Yes, but I understand that structurally, but that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what happened to them. What matters is how the public perceives it.
One of the things that's been driving me crazy more and more lately is when you have people who have large audiences who don't know what the fuck they're talking about, but they're just desperate to start giving their political takes and opinions. Because, look, you do a massive disservice. You have this giant audience of people who follow you, and if you're out there spreading false notions of politics, that's unacceptable. That's unacceptable.
Well, I have no following, so perhaps Mr. Kulinski will be okay with me giving my opinion. Am I allowed to have one of those? I'm unsure. I suspect that my opinion will also be a disservice, and by that bizarrely vague terminology, despite his otherwise straightforward insults, he means the wrong opinion, as in one he doesn't share. But all the same, I'm still gonna give it. Now, while this video was intended to be more about the dangers of echo chambers and how people, especially younglings, are susceptible to having their entire lives molded by and possibly ended by them, it is inevitably political due to the nature of Asmongold's comments and the additional ones that I picked out from the smorgasbord of his political commentary, which I personally thought best defined his outlook on the subject as concisely as possible. As the topic of immigration is the point of contention, I feel like I should provide my own outlook on the topic, so as to not seem entirely like I'm a sycophantic grifter. As for the trans comment, well, it's not really a point of contention here. It's just part of the spectacular display of the whiplash of an echo chamber. So I've left Asmon's comment on it to more or less stand alone, but he seems to believe that no one cares about adults. I'll repeat that. Adults doing whatever they want with their bodies as long as they don't shove it metaphorically down society's throat, be that in schools, art, law, politics, etc. A very common outlook, it seems, probably because no one actually cares about or even has the time to care about random adults screwing behind closed doors. Even if political warfare has made that mainstream, few people really do care. That's my outlook as well, just for what it's worth. By the by, many on Reddit preach a no forgiveness policy to anyone who isn't like them, so even if they do completely agree with his take on the trans topic, they'll still see him burn if he doesn't put his pants on the same way they do, and contrary to a popular expression, there is at least 2 ways to put your pants on, with only the extreme left having the authority to dictate which leg you're supposed to put on first, lest you be labeled as an undesirable. So my perspective is, and please try to do this, think of nations as a living body. When all goes well, the antibodies, T cells, whatever, they don't need to do anything. But what if you see a kidnapping or a mugging happen? You'd either intervene personally or you'd call the authorities to stop it, right? Just like the immune system dealing with an invading entity. However, not everything entering the body is negative, is it? I mean, there's helpful gut flora, there's blood transfusions. External living beings can be introduced and absorbed into the body as helpful, happy, harmonious parts of a whole. Think of immigration the same way. Citizens have enough problems without needing to walk on eggshells for fear of doing, speaking, dressing, eating, drinking, or simply being something that might insult an immigrant, possibly and dangerously to the point where an immigrant believes themselves, I don't know, honor-bound or faith-bound or something to kill the native citizen. Citizens don't know every culture and faith on the planet, and they shouldn't need to. It's the inverse. A desirable immigrant would be someone who wants to assimilate into the country because they appreciate something about it to the extent that they're willing to throw away their potential future for a different one, their current life in exchange for a potential future, their past life in exchange for one that they'll never really be able to go back to unless they get dual citizenship. It could be anything, as long as the motivation is pure. Culture, cuisine, people, politics. It could be a dream of being an actor in Hollywood, in the USA, or maybe being a famous mangaka in Japan. And in pursuit of this new life, these people would intend to learn the language, the culture, the politics, the general nuance of that country in order to act with respect towards its pre-existing citizens. What constitutes desirability in an immigrant is always the same. A desire to assimilate. Now, I'm aware that this is extremely difficult for first-generation immigrants, but you can sort of understand when someone is trying to assimilate, even if it's not perfect. I'm not saying someone has to come across the ocean knowing perfect English and knowing all of the mannerisms perfectly, but they also can't make the citizens feel terrified that they might be decapitated or something. An undesirable immigrant is someone who only seeks to better the life of them and theirs by moving to a more desirable location.
There is another organism on this planet that follows the same pattern. Do you know what it is?
Like a virus, they infect the body with the intent to make it more like them, rather than them becoming more like the body.
You move to an area and you multiply. And multiply until every natural resource is consumed.
Dwindling amounts of resources and land are starting to make it abundantly clear that being in a first world country doesn't mean you should have an automated door with a welcome mat at front that says, hey, it'd be nice if you took off your shit-covered shoes, but I don't want to oppress you or even slightly inconvenience you with my preferences and culture and rules and religion and laws. I mean, it is sort of my house, but you could just keep your shit covered shoes on and track shit through my house so that you don't have to be slightly inconvenienced. No, no, no. You expect this crude, rude, and lewd behavior from tourists because you're selling your country's culture for their dollar bills, y'all. But in real life, there are limits. There's no magical merchant NPC with infinite stockpiles of goods. You cannot trade in your bottomless well of pretympathy for food, water, and shelter for every minority group out there. Also, it's embarrassing for the USA to reach out their holy hands to countries half a world away, as if activists saving the blacks and natives of the USA is mission accomplished. And when did that happen exactly? Didn't we just have Black Lives Matter? Not to mention, people kind of just forgot the natives exist and that they still are struggling. Did I just come out of a coma or something? Last I checked, we have plenty of USA Americans who need help. And considering that in 20 years, an incredibly short amount of time, white people will be a minority in the USA of all places, like, shouldn't we stop wasting our breath classifying who needs help more? Countries have enough of a problem with their own civilians. And with too many immigrants spreading throughout, it creates an unsustainable situation, as it will eventually be overwhelmed. I mean, even drinking too much water can kill you. Even too much of the desirable immigrants can be detrimental. And eventually, when overwhelmed, the muscles atrophy, the organs, they weaken, and a body, the country, dies. Countries have always put their own people first. A government that does otherwise fails its people, and a failure of a government is one that will eventually fall. And those thinking they're morally superior for vomiting up America's historical tenets about immigration are nauseating, as if the USA wasn't a burgeoning country at the time with a gargantuan landmass and a massive coastline that desperately needed civilians and soldiers to protect it. As if the USA hasn't been restricting immigration policies since before any currently living human was born, like it's all Trump's fault or something. If the leaders of the old world knew then what we know now about the amount of resources, the amount of land, the geopolitical state of the world, and so forth, do you not think they would have made different laws? Do you not think the knowledge of intercontinental MIRVs filled with a shotgun blast of missiles that move at 18,000 miles per hour and are equipped with guidance chips and tipped with nuclear warheads that will make Hiroshima and Nagasaki look like someone farted too close to a candle might have changed the laws that our forefathers wrote down? I don't know, maybe. After all, Redditors are preaching change more than Zinch does, and yet they... Redditors, not Zinch. Obviously. Also tell us that immigration laws cannot be changed because feelings. Theirs is not a plea for progressive, enlightened, intelligent, diverse society. It's the act of opening Pandora's box, a country with no countrymen, where people are not members of a community and share no societal thinking or culture, but are instead territorial wolf packs who will attack anyone who enters their favela, their ghetto, their gated community, their little China, or their ivory tower with extreme prejudice. They carve out their own territory, and they congregate only with those who are like them. Oh, wait. I've just described the current iteration of the USA. Okay, then take whatever I said and multiply it until it seems like the dystopian corpocratic future of RoboCop had an irradiated baby with the post-apocalyptic hellscape of Mad Max. I'm trying to stay on the topic of color, but of course this includes genders, politics, religion, and so forth. All of these identifiers act as billboards, driving people in certain directions, just like social media algorithms. And once you have enough people of the same mindset in the same spot, you have to deal with something worse than a virus, worse than an infected wound. You now have a metastasizing cancerous tumor. This isn't a problem explicitly caused by physical immigration, by the way. The immigration of ideas or creation of homegrown radicals can also form these tumors, and excising them becomes extremely difficult when overly sympathetic people tell you that you have no right to prevent someone from, sacrificing a child to the blood god Gubla Gubul Gabublu, because it's part of their culture, their religion, it's their heritage. You can't oppress that. The irony is that these people's mindsets aren't some sort of sickness. They are the creations of a country. the country, this country usually, in this case, an abundance of peace, a mentality steeped and soaked in action movies and Disney fairy tales. I mean, what else do you expect? Reality can change people's minds, but they've yet to face it. This is a cold, cruel reality, and if you happen to be a citizen of a powerful country, now's a good time to appreciate that, because another cold, cruel reality is that countries, in time, will conquer and assimilate weaker countries around them until only one is left, because the world is finite, and countries are controlled by humans. Countries, humans, when pressured, are indifferent to the undesirable immigrant.
And the only way you can survive is to spread to another area.
Agent Smith was not wrong. The desperate act selfishly. And, in time, even countries become desperate. All the same, here we are, part of a country, and just as Asmongold says, the country is more important than your skin color, your gender, your religion, your fursona, or whichever political umbrella you choose to huddle under in order to avoid the chocolate rain sputtering forth from a politician's porthole. Yet, here we are with everyone, especially politicians, making everything more important than the country. The country is more important than anything else, and when you make the country... when you make the survival of the country, as a lot of Democrats are saying that half of all the people in the country should die, right? They're saying that all Republicans should be wiped out. You might just invite Putin or Xi over to take the country, right? Like,
Guys, surely nothing bad is ever going to come of this. Surely there will never be a negative reaction to this ever, right? I mean, there's no way that could ever happen. I mean, this is just probably an isolated incident, and that's it. Look at the ticket prices. I don't even know how much it is. I have no idea how much it is. But I think that you're seeing Europeans get, like, you're going to be starting to see Europeans, and especially people from, like, the UK, I think some of the Nordic countries and Germany, you're going to, I hope, hopefully not Germany. I mean, we've already had that happen before. But we're gonna start seeing them become radicalized at an extremely fast ratio. And when it happens, everybody is going to say, "Oh my God, who could have predicted this? Oh my God, how did we get here? Oh my God, why is this happening?" And anybody who's been on the internet will know the exact answer to that. And all of the Karens on mainstream media will be very, very confused.
well, it would be nice if they did do that, if they were confused, but instead they'll skip over questioning why something is the way it is and go straight to accusing people of wanting something different than their deluded fantasy. The entire world now is just a series of echo chambers. I personally never go to LSF, but it hits the main feed during drama, or in this case a total lack of drama, and hive-mindism irks me. I said before that I could have made this exact video about anyone who isn't hyper-left, but these two LSF threads, they happen within a week of each other. They placed Asmon right in front of me, and I thought to myself, you know what? He's perfect. No matter what accusations there are, they just slough off his slickened black wings. It even reminded me of another left-wing echo chamber hitting the main feed by trash-talking Asmongold some months prior. I mean, like, look at this. You know, the vast majority of men in the world would not appreciate a woman using sex to manipulate them for attention or money or gifts. They make it out as if just watching Asmongold is some sort of crime. You would never see any of these people, never see them criticizing that woman's clothing, because you'd get insta-cancelled for doing so. Instantly. But just watching Asmongold, that's a massive red flag. This isn't about Asmongold, to be clear. Again, this is about echo chambers. It's about the politics being used as a sports ball tournament. It's about winning. It's not about what is right. It's about being right. And on that topic,
Asmongold is not always right. You know it, I know it, everybody knows it. Except for the times that he is. He's not... Asmongold is wrong when he doesn't agree with what I agree with. However, when Asmongold agrees with what I think, he's spot on. When he says something that I personally disagree with, he deserves to be cancelled. When he says something that I personally agree with, he deserves to be heralded as a literal god.
Anyway, thanks for watching.
Take care now. Bye-bye then.
And you sound racist as fuck. No. There's nothing racist about what I've said at all. And also, by the way, if you want to clip what I'm saying out of context or to try to manipulate people and say that I'm being racist, I appreciate it because it'll give me content for tomorrow. Go ahead. I don't give a shit. It doesn't matter, and it will never affect me, and nobody will care. So go ahead. And anyway,